All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here again, talking about real music in real time for a few real people out there, just like you and just like me. I'm going to be talking about Neal Schon's response to Steve Perry over on Facebook, that lawsuit that Perry filed yesterday. More drama. Before we get into that, I want to show you this. This is Hydra Point Break. Really great album. Kind of sounds like Toto, right? And a little bit like the band Europe, at least on one song. They are from Sweden. And here's another band that likes the history of American melodic music more than the current population of our country does. Just putting it out there that way. Really cool band, great production value, courtesy of our friends over at Frontiers Music, named, I think, after the classic Toto album Hydra, possibly, most likely. Okay, so Journey, right? And Neal Schon and Steve Perry and Trademarks and, oh boy, folks. My first response to this is going to be a little bit weird for some people, is overall, right? Despite who's in the right, who's in the wrong with all this stuff, how much money do these people need? We're going to trademark song titles so we can put them on coffee mugs and bumper stickers and t-shirts. Or, I don't know, what other merchandise? Go over to Etsy and create yourself some Journey art, courtesy of the new Journey patented music title trademark. Steve Perry comes in and says, nope, can't do that, Neal. You shattered that stone. You broke the stone. Don't fracture the stone, Neal. Neal and John fractured the stone. And my second thought is maybe Steve Perry was right in 1998, taking the approach much like a girlfriend who essentially, got jilted or was, sent packing, which Perry being the lead vocalist of the band, and he didn't want to come back to the band, and he didn't want to tour with the band. And yeah, you can go back to that whole surgery thing and all that, and that's all true. But Perry basically took the approach that if, I don't get to be in this band, nobody gets to be in this band. And if you do go on, it's not going to be the same. And they went on, and it's never been the same. Let's just be honest. It's never been the same. And I enjoy the music the band has made since Perry left, but radio doesn't really care about what this band has done since Perry left, which is interesting. I think the radio industry has changed a lot. And yeah, you could go back to, say, the Revelation album, that first album with Arnell, and there was quite a buzz around that. And that sold a lot of product. It did really well, but it didn't have any staying power, didn't have any lasting radio power, because radio didn't care. Radio is still playing Don't Stop Believin', 100,000 times a day all around the world, right? So Perry, I guess, in a way, wins. Steve Perry wins. Do I like it? I don't know. I'm kind of indifferent to the fact that Perry kind of got what he wanted to some degree, both financially and also in this artistic realm, that, hey, nobody's going to top me. And nobody has, right? Nobody's out there saying that Freedom is better than Frontiers, right? Nobody. There's not one person. Revelation is not better than Escape. Eclipse isn't better than Departure. Go down the list. Generations, nowhere near the caliber of music the band did on Trial by Fire. I think that's all of them, right? Arrival, the first album with Steve Augeri, right? Good album. Not even close to, I don't know, pick another album I haven't mentioned, right? Evolution. Did I say Evolution? Nah, it's not as good as Evolution. Steve Perry was the best. Okay. And I've said it in other videos. I'm tired of hearing about how he was the best because certain fans can't let go of the fact that he's not in the band anymore and the band has gone on without him. And it's been, 30 plus years now, folks, right? Isn't it 30? No, 98. So we're in the 20s. We're 25, 24 years removed from Steve Perry. And, there are fans that just won't let that go. And it's frustrating because that makes it hard for the band to move on. But they are selling out gigs too. They're out there touring, and enough people are saying, that wasn't me. I wasn't back there. There's a whole new generation of people that have come up, heard the music, love it, didn't live it like I did during it. And that's not a hit or a knock on anyone who's not old like me. I'm just saying that to add context to this. So a whole new generation of people, maybe 2 generations of people now, have discovered this music and they want to hear it. So they go see Journey with Arnell and Todd Jensen and Dean Castronovo, and they're happy. They like it. It's a product. They feel like they're getting a good value for their money. So that tension will always be there. It's never going to go away. Even after all the books are written about this and Neal Schon puts out his book, and maybe Steve Perry will put out a book someday. Maybe Jeff Scott Soto will put out a book about everything that happened when he was in Journey. And it'll be great reading. It'll be great for me too. Hopefully I'm still going to be around for all of this stuff, right? I mean, I am a little bit younger than some of those guys. So hopefully, down the road in my super senior years, I'll be talking about, these tell-all books. We'll see if they actually happen. I know Neal Schon could write one. I know Steve Perry could write one. Jonathan Cain wrote a nice sort of, don't stop believing, everything's great kind of book. But it would be cool to get into more of the drama and the details so the fans can kind of figure out for themselves where the truth is. Okay. So with all that said, Neal Schon responds to Steve Perry on Facebook and, again, adding more fuel to the fire. This is his commentary on the article about Steve Perry sues his ex-Journey partners. All right. So Neal says, what a bunch of total crap. Here's how it goes, friends. So Neal hasn't really been, bashful about how he feels. John Cain calls a board of directors meeting out of nowhere. Then, before I found out about the meeting, Jonathan had come to me and said that he didn't like what they, meaning Ross, that's Ross Valerie, Smith, that's Steve Smith, Perry, and Herbie were planning. That's Herbie Herbert. Sometimes I call him Herbie Hancock, and I'm sorry, but I just can't get that out of my head. On that meeting, Steve, Ross, Smith, and Herbie voted myself and Cain off the island. No, off the board of directors. And Steve and all voted Ross in my place and Smith in John's. So Steve Perry, by the way, has denied on at least a couple of occasions now that he wasn't part of the coup. Steve says, nope, that wasn't me. But yet, again, Neal Schon says he was involved and Herbie was too. He goes on. They all knew about this, and I'd been investigating our trademarks for years, trying to get to the bottom of all the corruption we found. So they all knew at this time I'd been investigating our trademarks for years, right? Trying to get to the bottom of the corruption that we found, my wife and I, that nothing had ever been trademarked besides our music. Okay, so interesting that Schon is basically saying that he discovered that you could trademark things, right, besides the music itself. They all went for a takeover and it didn't work. Quite simple. So my wife found a legitimate trademark attorney that wasn't in the corrupt musical circles, and we were then successful in attaining it, to protect everything we built. The word it is kind of obscured here. I think it is the word it. Anyway, we had been getting ripped off since the beginning until I shut it down. So the question is, why did nobody, meaning nobody else's attorneys or accountants, including Steve's, who was actually ours at one time, and the meaning maybe the band's attorney, and individual band attorneys and accountants try to work through this trademark issue, and I'm doing a little editing here, and help us. It was a giant corrupted ring of people that either management or accountants hired to work for us, cashing in on all our merchandise up until now. At this point, I decided to go for all album titles as well as song titles. The more we got educated on how songwriting and copyrights have nothing to do with trademarks. It's kind of a, I don't know, it's sort of an incomplete sentence there, but I see what he's saying here. We did this because we were more educated on how songwriting and copyrights have nothing to do with trademarks. You haven't heard the last of this, friends. We are going to peel back the onion. Neal Schon, Journey lead guitarist, founder, and manager. So Neal putting his foot down here. Oh, man, people. So, again, another response I have to this is rock stars needing more money. Okay, we could trademark this stuff. This is different. It's not a copyright, it's a trademark. And we could trademark the name. We could put it on a t-shirt. We could trademark the logo. We could do this. We could market that. We're missing a whole revenue stream here. Perry said, not so fast. You got that trademark because you didn't inform them that I was part of that whole trademark. I think that's where the lawsuit comes from. These guys filed their request as the JN LLC. John, Neal, pretty sure that's what that stands for, right? It's a new partnership that they recently put together here, which dissolved the old partnership. You know, it's really weird that you have to get deep into the weeds with all the legal jargon, the accountants, the lawyers, you know, the patent office, whatever it is. You know, it's just crazy that we've come to this with Journey and their situation. But this is where we're at. We've got a bunch of people who have this cash cow, and they're trying to cut it up. And they found a new part of the cow that they hadn't discovered before. They're like, hey, we could trademark all this stuff. And John and Neal probably thought, this is kind of a compensation for all the money that Perry still gets from their touring revenue, from their merch sales. And yeah, supposedly over time, that money starts to decrease, but I don't think it's ever going away completely. I think Steve Perry is set for life. I think Steve Perry has a lot of free time. And look, I'm not bashing on Perry, but, you know, Perry did thank his attorney, right, during the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. I'd like to thank my lawyer, you know, because, you know, and that was a way too, I think, to kind of rub it into the guys. Like, look, I wasn't in this band for so many years. I came back to the hall to let people know this was my band. I didn't want it to be the current band. He did it in a way too that was classy for everybody who likes Arnell and understands the current lineup is a representation of the old days. But quite frankly, you know, it's never going to recapture the Steve Perry era. And again, Steve Perry was successful in some ways to say, hey, if you don't want me, nobody else is going to get you in the same way. And it's kind of like the jilted girlfriend. And it's kind of like backwards in a way that, hey, if I'm not in the band, I'm going to make sure you guys aren't ever at the same level you once were. You're using that name, and that name means something to people who hear this music on the radio. Now, you can make the argument, and it's a good argument, that Journey was Journey before Steve Perry joined. right? But it's funny how in this lawsuit or the takeover or the coup, Herbie Herbert and Steve Perry show up. Those guys didn't like each other for a very long time, right? But I think Steve Perry probably looked back and said, Herbie was really good at business. And Herbie probably doesn't like the way this band is currently going. And the more you read this, the more it really looks like, hey, Neal Schon is out, Jonathan Cain is out. Imagine if Neal Schon was ousted from Journey. Would the fans put up with that? Here's my theory. If they were successful at that takeover, I think Steve Perry would have come back and been in that band again. I know it's a crazy theory, but Steve didn't have a problem with Ross Valerie, even though he fired him back in the 80s. He probably thought, he's the bass player. He's a goofy guy. I can get along with him, right? He kicked out Steve Smith too. But at that point, he had more in common with Steve and Ross than he had with John and Neal, right? Jonathan Cain was the guy who picked up the phone and made the call to Perry in 1998 and told him, hey, we're looking for other singers, right? Wasn't Ross Valerie, wasn't Steve Smith. And, Herbie probably came along and said, you know what? We could take this back. You could be in the band again, and we could put some music together and we would make a fortune. But Perry said, probably on one condition, that Neal and John aren't in this band. And they would have to wrestle control of everything away from those guys to put Journey back in Steve Perry's hands. Or, Steve Perry might have just shut the whole thing down. Said, you know what? Journey isn't really Journey unless you have this classic lineup. And the fact that he was siding with Smith and Valerie, he was indicating that he was okay with Frontiers and Escape and Departure, right? I think Steve was on with Departure, from what I remember. He was okay with that. And he would kind of sign on and be part of this old version of Journey and say, yeah, we'll market this stuff. We'll get it out there, whether we have a touring band or not. And Cain and Schon know today that the only way you can really make money with this current lineup is to go out and be road warriors, right? And to put a live show together and probably be out on the road with at least one band, if not more. Right now, it's Toto and Journey. So very interesting developments. And this brings everything back. This brings 1998 back. It brings back all of the animosity that was there. Who's going to get what as far as revenue goes? That's really the most important thing. And again, the cash cow, we found a new piece of cow that we can make money off of. And Perry's like, not so fast. And Neal Schon says he's going to peel back the onion, whatever that means. So as the journey turns, ladies and gentlemen, right here on this channel, along with Hydra, got to check out Point Break. This should be about music. This should just be about music. How's that new Journey album? It's pretty good. And I would have to say this Hydra album might be even better. See, I basically tell it like it is, or at least I tell it the way, I call it the way I see it, right? And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm wrong a lot, according to a lot of chat rooms and people who, again, have a lot of free time on their hands. But I just do this because I love doing it. It's too bad about Journey. In a way, like I said, at the end of it all, it would be cool if everybody would just get back together again at this stage. I think Arnell would like this to be over. He's made a lot of money. He's famous, but I think he would probably like it if the pressure wasn't on him constantly. That's my theory about Arnell. And, even if it wasn't like Journey at full strength, Journey with Steve Perry, but Journey without Neal Schon and Jonathan Cain, would fans accept that? Unfortunately, people, and this is no knock against John and Neal, right? And Neal is the founder. Neal is the only original guy left in the band. Most fans today, I think, in the end, would probably side with Perry over everybody. That's my hunch. And I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying I think that's how fans would react if Perry took this whole thing over and said, hey, it's my band again. I'm in charge, just like 1986, Raised on Radio 2 coming out soon, right? Fans would go crazy for that. And, I would feel bad for Neal Schon because obviously he's working really hard to try to make this his baby, but I don't think it'll ever fully be his baby. Even if he wins on a legal basis here, I don't know how fans are going to react to that. So we shall see. I'm sure we haven't seen the end of this because peeling back an onion takes some time. So I will keep you posted.